Hello and welcome to the AVID PD. O is for organization. This is Angela Forbes and I am the AVID District Coordinator. I wanted to first start with getting us to know where we're at and what items we'll pull from the Google Classroom. So looking in the AVID Google Classroom, you're going to see that there's the AVID meeting number 3, O is for organization. And in it, you'll see that there is a PowerPoint, which is what I'm going to be on most of the presentation. And then there's also an AVID meeting Google Docs. And when you click that, you're going to see this document. Now, the cool thing about this is that you can either print it or you can type into the Google Doc. If you print it, you can simply just take a picture of it and upload it as a PDF. Or a GIF, and you'll be fine. This section here is where you're going to take notes, and then you're going to look at each section afterwards, and it will tell you what slide it's connected to. You'll also see that as we progress, there's going to be a place where it says slide 16, and then it's resource handout. This is where you can click on this link and it will take you to the handout for this document. This handout is helpful because it will tell you how to do this assignment with your students. It'll give you different things that you can refer to so that you'll have a better understanding of where we're at, because a lot of the stuff that we do today, you will actually be able to bring right back to your classroom. So let's go back. And if you'll see that at the end, there is another resource handout section, and it tells you what pages to refer to. And then we have a quick write. What you'll see is that there are also 2 more things in the Google Classroom that you're going to need to complete. One is for question 1O, is for organization. And then the second one is the question number 2. O is for organization. So the nice thing about these is that it is a stream where we can have a class discussion, and then you will be set to go for that. So those 3 things you're going to be turning into at the end. You'll turn in the Google Doc. You'll turn in the question 1, O for organization, and the question 2, O for organization. And those will be the 3 things that you turn in besides signing in and logging your hours. So let's go ahead and get started on the O is for organization. I'm going to go ahead and open up the slideshow. And the point of this unit is O for organization. It's what we're going to concentrate on to do this school-wide organization skill. But it's a chance to learn the plan and use the organization, while also what you'll see is in AVID, we actually use Wicker strategies all integrated and together. So you might be using O for organization, but then you might also in the same lesson be using writing, inquiry, collaboration, and reading, because they are just all great strategies and you're great teachers that use these in all of your classes. So AVID's mission is to close the achievement gap by preparing all students for college readiness and success in a global society. Remember, at Palmdale High School, we are AVID school-wide. We use Wicker in all of our classes because you're great teachers and they're great strategies. Today's focus is on organization. If we look at the pillars of instruction, just a side note, we're looking at the what, the how, and the why, the relevance of it, and the why are we doing this. The objectives we have today, these are the things that we want you to be able to take away. This is like your lessons in your class. We want you to be able to effectively use AVID resources to increase the organization skills of your students. We want you to be able to share AVID resources with other staff members, and like we're doing with you, to increase college readiness of all students on campus. Our agenda today is introduction. We're going to test your memory, definition of organization. We're going to show you why this CCI connection, how it's all connected, and great stuff. We're going to have organization domains, best practices, time management, and reflection. So let's first start with the essential question. Essential questions are always great to give students at the beginning because it tells them the takeaway that you want them to have by the end of the lesson. So for today, what you're going to be taking notes on and focusing on is how can you effectively use AVID resources to increase the organizational skills of your students. So now we're moving into the student manipulation of content, the learning. And if you want to go ahead and press pause and take a minute to write this question down, that would be great. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to play a game. And this is a string of words. I'm going to go over the directions real quick. The first thing, and you can actually take this lesson back to your students. It's a great strategy to use with your students where you can show them the importance of organization, how they can organize different ideas to remember, and also the importance of note taking. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to read a string of words. It's going to be on the next slide. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to memorize the words, and you're not going to be able to write anything down. And then I'm going to give you 60 seconds to write the words down, and then you're going to have 1 point for each word that you remember. We're going to try to see how many points you can do. Now remember, this is to show how repetition and organization increase the ability to remember, and people with better ways of organizing information do a better job of remembering. This game is designed to help your students reflect on how they organize while they can gain insight from others. So let's look at the next slide. And here's the words. Now remember, you can't write anything down yet. You're going to get 60 seconds to just remember words. So go ahead. I'm a track coach. Set my timer. I'm going to give you 60 seconds. Go. Don't write anything. Just look and study and remember. All right, time's up. So now what I want you to do is I want you to go to your handout where it says string of words, and I want you to write down every word that you can remember from the list that you saw. You're only going to have a minute to do so. So I'm resetting my timer and go. All right, time's up. So now what I want you to do is I'm going to go to the next slide, and I want you to go through the words, count how many you remembered that you wrote down, and give yourself a point for each word. One thing I'm also going to point out is that if you notice, there's actually 4 categories: animals, famous people, vegetable, and cars. So go through and count how many points you got. And do you see, and if you need to pause me at any time to do things, you can. Do you see that there's a certain group of words that was easier for you to remember? Now, one thing I would do if I was working with students at this point is I would actually partner them up with somebody next to them, and I would have them answer the question in the think, pair, share. About remembering words. And this, you can look at your resource handout, and it is helpful for you to see that there. But also just asking them, what do they notice about what they were able to remember better? And so I would give them just probably 60 seconds to talk with their partner about that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the next slide. It's got a new set of words. I'm going to give you 60 seconds again to write down, or to not write down. You're not allowed to write. I just cheated for you. No writing. But to try to remember as many of the words as possible. Remember last time and how there were certain categories that might help you this time. So let's look at the words. And you have 60 seconds to try to remember as many words as possible. Don't write anything down. Okay, just like last time, I'm going to switch the slide and you're going to go to the string of words and you're going to try to write down as many words as you can with 60 seconds. Write as many as you can down. Ready? Go. All right, time's up. So now here's the list of words again. Go through, count how many you got right, and give yourself a number of points. Go ahead and pause me so you can do that. All right, so if we look at it, what I want you to do is look at the string of words, reflection for slide 13. And I want you to answer these two questions. Did you beat your score? If so, why or how? And you can go ahead and pause me to do that. Now, after I have students do this, what I'm going to tell you is reflect on what did you notice? What was the difference between the two times? Did you notice that there were categories again? It was animals, famous people, vegetables, and cars. And then at this point, I would have you turn to a partner and I would have you discuss what helps people remember better. What kind of organizational skills do we use when we're note taking to help us to remember, or when we're studying to help us to remember? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and keep going though. The next slide that we do in the next part we're going to do is definition of organization, and it's with table talk. And the goal of this is to use previous knowledge to discuss what you already think and know about organization. Now, organization includes managing materials, study habits, planning and prioritizing, goal setting, and students taking responsibility for their own learning. So what I'd like for you to do next, and you can do the same activity with students, is define what is organization. No Googling allowed. You're going to go to question 1 in the Google Classroom, and you're going to record your answer. What do you think the definition of organization is? So you can go ahead and do that now. Now, if we were working with our students, we might have them work in a table and create a definition of organization. Each team would choose one person to record the definition on a piece of paper and prepare it to share out loud. Then afterwards, we could have the teams popcorn out their definitions, compare them to each other, And then look at the resource handout that has the wicker poster of organization. This is in your resource handout, and have each team talk about what they missed with the organization. And this is something that can help students to have a better understanding that organization is more than just a planner. It's actually study skills and note taking as well. So here is just a simple definition of organization. It's the act of forming coherently, the act of systemic planning, and the act of arranging elements. So notice that's not just a planner, that's note taking, that's discussion. There's all kinds of ways to organize. So the next part, we're going to make a connection between the organizational resources, strategies, and start putting ideas together. So let's look at the next slide. This is the organization poster I was talking about, where you can start looking at the different parts of organization. You'll notice that this has meets implementation. This is where we are strategizing to have these organization skills school-wide. And so if you go into the resource handout, for this section, it's in slide 16, and it kind of gives you ideas on how to work with students on better understanding what organization does. And so what I'd like for you to do next in the handout we have on the Google Doc is I'd like you to write down your favorite binder practices, tips, or variations on all three. You're not going to do it on sticky notes. This is something you could do with your students. Instead, you're going to do it in the box. How to use binders in your class. And if you don't use binders, what do you use so kids can be organized? So go ahead and pause me and answer that question. All right. So what we're going to do next is carousel, can't talk, brainstorming, and it's used to elicit background knowledge quickly, to build background knowledge, to review recently studied information, or to gather opinions. This strategy allows students to build on one another's ideas in a very structured manner. A gallery walk is a chance to see all the information and ideas in a learning split space. Students are encouraged to take notes to predict what the teachers want students to learn and to find interesting ideas. Although teachers may currently be teaching one grade level, we want them to review all secondary grade levels to see the vertical alignment and to be prepared if their teaching assignment changes. Inform participants, your students and whatnot, that additional information and step-by-step instructions for carousel brainstorming are available in the AVID Critical Thinking and Engagement online in My AVID. So what we're going to do is we're going to have organization in your own classes. If you were doing this in your class, you could prepare a chart paper, hang it on the walls in your classroom. You could have students work in groups of 4 to 5. Assign each group to begin at a specific chart. It might be helpful to assign different color markers for each group. On the first signal, you'd have your groups move to assigned charts. Then summarize and write the most important information for the first area. With organization and time management. The next thing is I would give students a minute and a half to take notes about note taking and how that is an area of organization. Have students take notes for a minute and a half on research and technology. And again, this is all based on that organization poster that we saw before. Have students take notes for a minute and a half on test preparation and test taking. Have students do a minute and a half on just afterwards going around and looking at all of the galleries. So the whole goal is basically you're looking at the organization poster, you're breaking it into different parts, and you're having students take notes on the different areas of organization so that they have that and they know what to do next. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about backwards mapping, and that's specifically targeted towards time management and planners. What is the number one strategy for planner success? It's backwards mapping. It's knowing that you have something due on a date ahead of time and doing parts all up until that date so that you're not waiting until the last minute to get everything done. So if we look at it, you're going to look at handouts page 15 through 17, and this is in the resource handout. And you're going to complete this on your Google Doc. And you're going to first do a quick write. How will you use backwards mapping for a personal goal you want to accomplish? And again, you're going to have to look at the resource handout, and it's pages 15 through 17. And you're going to see that it's broken into parts. Essentially, if students have something, a big test or a big project that's due on May 17th, then you would teach them how to break it into little steps, that they're studying different parts of the test or they're doing different parts of the project each week, building up to that. And they have specific concrete things that they're completing each week in order to build up to that final date. So review resources available in the handouts that we've given you. And in your quick right now, how will you use backwards mapping for a personal goal that you want to accomplish? And pause me and go ahead and answer that question. And then the next question you're going to answer, another quick write. How can you teach and utilize backwards mapping with your students in your classes? You're going to take a minute, pause me, look at those handouts and answer that question. How do you break things down into little parts for that big test, for that big project, for that essay that's coming up in 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Go ahead and answer that question. Pause me. Now, for the question 2 reflection, you may notice that my phone rang. And I think that this is key with organization, even though it was humorous that it happened, because like our students are in the same boat where they're constantly being inundated with different things that kind of disrupt their organization or distractions. And they need to be able to stay organized through that. So think about that for question 2, and you're going to go to Google Classroom. And I'm going to ask you a couple questions here that you're going to answer in Google Classroom. So if we look at these questions, it is, what is your system for getting rid of the materials from the binders through all that disorganization, those distractions that I don't need it anymore? What can I keep using? The second question is, what are you taking back to your classes about organizing binders and planners? And organizing, I would even say note taking, of how we organized note taking and remembering for the words that we were doing earlier. And then the third question is, how will you encourage organization within your classes? And I would even say extending that. How can you help to give them tools to organize when they're at home, when they have those phone ringings, when they have the cell phones popping? So go ahead and pause me and respond to question 2 in your Google Classroom. Also, you'll see this is going back to our essential question. How can you effectively use AVID resources to increase your organizational skills? You might go ahead and add this to your notes on that Google Doc. What is the overall things that you've learned that you can take back to your class? Because that's the goal. We always want you to be able to take things back right away to your class and use them. Thank you so much for coming to our AVID PD. Again, I'm Angela Forbes. I am the AVID District Trainer here. Here's my email address to get in touch with me if you need anything. Nicole Santana, our amazing instructional partner who set up the Google Classroom, all the handouts, and the PowerPoint has Nicole Santana's email. She's fantastic. Reach out to her. She can come see you do stuff in your class. And of course, you can always use myavid.org as a resource. Thank you so much again, and we will see you next time.